Hello there and welcome to step 5. On step 5, I know that we'll probably start with this part of the step first. Commonly missed areas, don't forget A7. A12 will be in that same block as A7. And these screws are pretty important. Make sure they're not with the flange on them. Here are the tools you'll need. You can use just this screwdriver if you have it, but if you have some larger screwdrivers, I would use those on the larger screws. These are getting larger, so there are the B elements in there. They're the yellow ones. And then in the A elements, you'll see that we've got A12. So there's A12 and A7 right here. And then of course, all the screws that you need will be in here. I've collected all of the parts. So we've got B12, we've got the gearbox we built, the switch that we built, the battery box we built, A7, A12, 4 3x8 screws and 3 2x6 screws. Important to know that this 3x8 screw does not have the flange on it, so it's just the regular 3x8 screw. For the first part of the step, I'm actually going to work from the bottom of the page for a little bit, then go to the top. So I like to use the fact that this has magnetics, and this gives me a nice way to push hard, because remember, you're pushing down hard and turning because you have to cut that thread into the plastic. I like to keep it on here and screw it in. You're really trying to cut these threads in, so it's going to be a lot of work. As you can see, I've sped up this video to kind of get us through this part. Okay, now I want to make sure that this doesn't wiggle very well. I want to make sure it's nice and tight. The next thing I like to do is put A12 on, and the challenge is you want to make sure that there's this little ridge right here that you put it there, and when you look at the directions, you'll see that the screw needs to come from this side. Okay, so if the screw comes from this side, then goes all the way in, and I'll use the smaller screwdriver for this one, and I'll use a larger one on the next one. Okay, so you can see how I'm holding it with my thumb up against that ridge that we showed. I'm screwing it in tight. I used the larger screw this time. So it slides in from this end. Now remember, I want to be perpendicular. That way it screws in tight. Now I check it. Screws are on the same side as this, up against the ridge right there, Now we're going to put the switch on. Now you can see there's two guide rails there and there. And so I'm going to put this in here. Going to utilize the magnetics to drop that in there while I hold on to it. Okay? Because it screws into that hole. Then of course, pushing down as I tighten. Notice how I'm twisting on the red handle, not down here. Okay, so I'm pushing and I'm twisting. Okay, this is still a little loose, so I want to push down, tighten it again. Nice and tight. Finally, we're going to put the gearbox on B12. I want to make sure I'm in the front holes there. There's some guidelines, just like there were with the other parts. As you can see here, I'm trying to make sure I'm perpendicular to the screw end. I'm going to have to push down pretty hard because the screw has to really bite into there. So I'm going to leave it just a little loose to start with so that I can line up the second screw. Now that the second screw is lined up, I can tighten this all the way down. Now one of the last things we're going to actually assemble is A7. It's sometimes missed, so what we need to do is make sure that we go through A7 like this and not bind up the wire. So you don't want to pinch the wire in there. And then of course, I like to go underneath, but you can do either way. These go through that. Hole right there. Okay, let's talk about final checks with this step 5. So we've got A7 on there correctly, not pinched. I can see the big screws here and here. Those are the 3x8s that are holding on A12. A12 is very securely attached. I've checked it. The switch is securely attached. I've checked that. I'm in these front holes right here and right here, and the gearbox is very tight. Here I've kind of combined both bad steps that I normally see. One is that the screw is coming from this side, and two, that it has a flange up there, because see, this is the screw you're supposed to use, and that's the side it should be coming on.